Have you ever looked at the world like, just felt entirely overwhelmed by the absolute mess of it all and wondered how some people manage to just float above it
Oh, yeah.
constantly? Right. Like they're navigating the exact same chaotic reality you are, but they seem completely untethered from the stress. Like they're genuinely free.
Well, I mean, it's the ultimate modern fantasy, isn't it?
Totally.
You know, you're standing on a crowded train or you're staring down an inbox that's just actively mutating, and you spot that one person who just exudes this profound, unshakable peace.
Yes.
And you just can't help but think, like, what operating system are they running that I just haven't downloaded yet?
Exactly. And figuring out how to download that update is basically the core mission of today's deep dive.
I love that framing.
Yeah. So we are exploring a fascinating spoken word style poem today. It's titled The 5D Frequency. And, for this audience, we usually dig into research papers or psychological literature to understand these kinds of cognitive shifts.
Right, the heavy academic stuff.
Exactly. But what is so powerful about using a poem to look at spiritual awakening is that poetry fundamentally bypasses the analytical mind,
Oh, absolutely. It sneaks right past the defenses.
It does. It acts as this really raw emotional map of moving from a state of total isolation to one of deep, interconnected frequency.
Which is exactly why this piece is so valuable. I mean, it doesn't give us a clinical breakdown. It gives us the visceral experience of the journey.
Yeah.
So we're going to examine this text pretty closely, looking at the tension it builds between modern internalized anxiety.
Very fun stuff.
Right. What the author cleverly calls the clock and the micromanager. And we'll contrast that with the expansive paradigm it refers to as the new earth.
It's quite the leap.
It really is. It's a transition from a very dense, ego-driven reality to a completely different psychological framework.
I have to say, reading this piece just dragged me right back to my own worst habits.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. When the poem mentions the micromanager, I instantly thought of myself at like 11:30 p.m., sitting in bed, just compulsively checking emails.
Oh, brutal.
Right. I'm literally micromanaging my own anxiety, keeping myself on this exhausting treadmill for absolutely no reason. So seeing that mirrored in the text, but then being offered an exit strategy is just incredibly compelling.
Well, and it's compelling because the author doesn't actually start with the exit strategy.
That's a good point.
They refuse to sugarcoat the starting line, The narrator isn't sitting on a mountaintop seeking enlightenment. They are drowning.
Yeah, they're really in it.
They look at someone who is free and confess that just a year prior, they were trapped in that exact same shoe. The text says they were, quote, full of fear, full of lack, with a stack of despair.
Man, a stack of despair. I just kept coming back to that phrase.
It's incredibly heavy.
It is. It implies that the sadness isn't just a random event, right? It's an accumulation. It's almost like an architecture you've built around yourself. And the narrator looks at this stack and just says, this is unfair, this is unbalanced, this is unsocial, this is against me.
Right. And if we overlay this with, say, Eckhart Tolle's concept of the pain body, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. So the stack of despair is that accumulated reservoir of emotional pain that essentially takes on a life of its own.
Right.
In this state, the ego just thrives on grievance. It's this highly localized, victim-centered perspective where literally every external event is processed through a filter of personal persecution.
Like the universe is out to get you.
Exactly. The universe isn't just random, it is actively conspiring against you.
And the poem doesn't just, leave that persecution in the abstract. It maps out how that internal state just violently fractures your external world.
It really spreads everywhere.
It does. The narrator says it's in the street, at work, in the family. Like literally nowhere is safe. They say they have no true friends, nobody to talk, no one who understands.
It's total systemic alienation.
Yes. You're not just having a bad day at the office. You are fundamentally isolated from the human experience.
And that isolation, it cascades all the way down to the core of the psyche. Like the most devastating line in that whole opening section is, even me a stranger to myself.
Oof, yeah. That one hurts.
It really does, because that is the hallmark of a complete identity crisis. When your entire sense of self is built on external validation.
Like being understood by your family.
Right, or succeeding at work. And when all those external structures suddenly feel hostile, the ego just collapses. You are left completely unrecognizable to yourself.
Which ties perfectly into Carl Jung's idea of the shadow, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you are that disconnected, all your unrecognized parts just sort of take over. The narrator says they're creative like hell, but without fans, and then mentions this little bell in my head, the nonstop loops.
The nonstop loops.
Yeah, that is the exact sound of the shadow running the show.
Exactly. And, biologically speaking, those nonstop loops are the sound of the brain's default mode network, or the DMN, just an absolute overdrive.
Okay, remind us how the DMN plays into this.
Sure. So the DMN is the neural network responsible for self-referential thought. It's what handles time travel to the past and future, and crucially, rumination.
The worrying machine.
Concisely. When you are trapped in that state of lack, your DMN is constantly firing, trying to solve the problem of your anxiety by generating more anxious thoughts.
Which never works.
Never. It's a closed, completely agonizing system.
It's like, okay, it's like being strapped to a treadmill in a pitch black room.
Oh, that's a great image.
Right. You are absolutely exhausted, drained by this stack of despair, but your legs just keep pumping because the DMN won't let you stop. You're sweating out all this mental energy and getting literally nowhere.
Nowhere at all.
Which makes me wonder about the sequence of events here. Because looking at the text, the narrator is clearly at absolute rock bottom before anything changes.
Very true.
So do we actually have to get completely violently sick of ourselves before this kind of awakening can happen? Like, is the treadmill of suffering a mandatory prerequisite?
Well, it's a brutal thought, but the architecture of the poem heavily suggests that exhaustion is the primary catalyst.
Really?
Yeah. It's not that suffering is morally required, but psychologically, the ego will defend its reality constructs until the pain of maintaining them outweighs the terror of letting them go.
Wow.
So when you are a stranger to yourself carrying a literal stack of despair, the sheer unsustainability of the situation forces a breaking point. The system just crashes.
So the pain of remaining in the loop finally exceeds the fear of stepping out of it.
Exactly.
That makes total sense. You don't jump off a moving treadmill unless you feel like you're going to die if you keep running.
Right.
And that breaking point brings us to the hinge of the entire poem. The narrator hits that peak exhaustion and suddenly asks this one incredibly simple question. How would it be without that fear?
I love that line. That single line is a masterclass in what psychologists call cognitive diffusion.
Oh, walk us through the mechanics of that, because to me, it doesn't actually sound like they're fighting the fear.
No, they aren't fighting it at all, and that's the genius of it. Normally, when you are fused with a thought, you are the thought, right?
Right.
You are the fear. But when the narrator asks, how would it be without that fear? They are suddenly creating distance. They are stepping back into the role of the observer.
Ah, okay.
And neurologically, this shifts brain activity away from the amygdala, the fear center, and engages the prefrontal cortex. By simply observing the fear as an object, rather than an absolute truth, its grip instantly loosens.
They found the stop button on the treadmill.
Yes, exactly.
They realize the fear is basically a pair of augmented reality glasses they've been wearing, not the actual room they're standing in.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And once they take those glasses off, they start actively questioning their environment. They say they no longer feel like a fool about the environments they're in, and they want to live without the clock or micromanager.
And this is where the internal psychological shift becomes a structural critique, because the clock and the micromanager aren't just literal bosses or wristwatches.
Right, they represent something bigger.
Yeah, they are brilliant metaphors for the interjected supervisor.
The interjected supervisor. Let me guess. That's the voice in our head that sounds exactly like our most demanding boss.
Essentially, yes.
Right.
It is a psychological term for external societal pressures. So the constant demand to be productive, to optimize your time, to adhere to rigid norms. We internalize all of that so deeply that we think it's our own voice.
And the narrator explicitly calls them out. They say these are beliefs that are not mine and norms no one questions.
Exactly.
They realize that this exhausting treadmill was manufactured by a society that basically monetizes their anxiety. But, and I want to really press on this for a second.
Go for it.
Because anyone who has dipped their toes into spiritual literature has seen the dark side of this exact sentiment.
The escapism trap.
Yes. The narrator wants to ditch the clock, ignore the micromanager, and skip their pride. Isn't this dangerously close to spiritual bypassing? Like, how does one live in a 5D frequency and still pay rent in a 3D world? If you just stop answering to the clock, you get fired.
It is arguably the most critical question in modern spirituality, and honestly, if the poem stopped there, you could easily dismiss it as mere escapism.
Right.
But you have to look at what the narrator is moving toward, not just what they're moving away from. The text explicitly says they want to be, quote, living in love, unconditional, to just be helping others in grace.
Wait, so by saying helping others in grace, they're anchoring themselves back in the community.
Precisely. True awakening isn't detachment from reality. It's a deeper engagement with it, but from a totally different energetic source.
Oh, that makes sense.
The action hasn't stopped, you know? They're still acting, they're still helping, but the fuel for that action has changed.
Right.
They aren't helping because the micromanager is threatening them or because they need to feed their ego's pride. They're operating from a baseline of grace. They haven't left the game. They've just fundamentally changed the rules they play by.
Okay, that completely reframes it for me. They aren't abandoning their responsibilities. They are stripping the neurotic anxiety out of them.
Exactly.
And to facilitate that kind of groundedness, the poem prescribes a really specific remedy. The narrator says, I need more space, that would be fine. I am nature, I need hugs like a tree. I just love how aggressively physical that is after so much mental torment.
It is a deliberate neurological reset. Remember we talked about the default mode network keeping the brain trapped in mental loops?
Yeah, the treadmill.
Right. Well, one of the most effective ways to quiet the DMN is through somatic experiencing.
Getting back into the body.
Yes, returning to the physical body and the immediate sensory environment. So by declaring I am nature, the narrator is rejecting that hyper-intellectualized personal matrix. They are bypassing the mind's endless analysis and regulating their nervous system just by connecting to the physical earth.
Which gives them the strength to do the final demolition. They say, let's get out of all that sucks and put that negative aside, the personal matrix, the reality constructs, skip all my pride.
A clean sweep.
Yeah. But here's the thing. When you tear down the scaffolding of your entire identity, when the clock, the pride, and the matrix are all gone, you are left with a terrifying void. What actually rushes in to fill that empty space?
The 5D frequency?
The 5D frequency.
Right.
And since our listeners are pretty familiar with these esoteric concepts, we don't need to define 5D as some, sci-fi alternate universe.
No spaceships required.
Right, no spaceships. In this framework, 3D represents the dense reality of matter, survival, and linear time, basically the realm of the clock.
Okay.
4D is often viewed as the realm of time and mind, where that cognitive diffusion happens. But 5D is a state of consciousness defined by unity, unconditional love, and a total lack of separation. It is an energetic frequency, not a geographic location. So let's look at how the poem populates this 5D state, because it is a massive departure from the beginning.
Night and day.
The narrator says, I'm ready for this new soul tribe, a life in 5D, sharing wealth, experiencing my destiny. Contrast that with the opening lines. They went from having no true friends and nobody to talk to suddenly claiming a new soul tribe and a future lineage.
The absolute isolation is replaced by profound belonging.
Yes.
And what's truly masterful about this piece is that the structure of the poem itself actually performs the very frequency shift it's describing.
Wait, really? What do you mean?
Look at the vocabulary in the rhymes. In the first stanza, the rhyming anchors are words like lack and stack, despair and unfair.
They're very heavy words.
They are closed, tight, restrictive phonemes. They trap the reader in this small, anxious space. But as the narrator moves into 5D, the rhyme scheme physically expands. We get tribe and 5D, destiny and family, fame and flame.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The linguistic architecture of the poem opens up, literally raising the frequency of the text.
Oh, that is incredible. The poem is literally vibrating at a higher level by the end.
Exactly.
It reminds me of tuning an old analog radio.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, think about it. When you start out in the first stanza, you are stuck in the static of the personal matrix. You're hearing the angry talk radio of the micromanager, just the relentless static of the nonstop loops.
Right.
And when you're in it, you think that static is the only broadcast that exists in the entire world.
Yes. You completely mistake the noise of your own ego for the ultimate reality of the universe.
Exactly. But the moment you ask, how would it be without that fear?
Yeah.
You essentially reach out and turn the dial. You realize you don't actually have to listen to that frequency.
You have a choice.
You have a choice. You bypass the static, and suddenly the signal locks in. You hit the 5D frequency, the noise vanishes, and the music is crystal clear. And the most important part of that analogy, for me anyway, is that you didn't have to build a new radio. You didn't have to fly to a monastery in Tibet. The 5D broadcast was right there in the room with you the whole time, playing just underneath the static. You just had to shift your internal receiver.
And that shift dictates exactly what you experience in the physical world. The external circumstances, the chaotic street, the challenging work environment, they might remain exactly the same.
The inbox is still mutating.
The inbox is definitely still mutating. But because your internal receiver is tuned to a frequency of grace, sharing, and unity, your experience of that environment is transformed.
That makes total sense.
You are no longer a victim being battered by a 3D world. You are a conscious creator broadcasting a 5D signal into it.
It is a total rewrite of their reality. I mean, they boldly claim, hello, New Earth fame, body full of health, my future lineage, and beloved twin flame. It's this assertion of abundance that just completely obliterates the lack they started with.
Which brings us back to the psychological utility of a piece like this. It really serves as a reminder that the locus of control is always internal.
Always.
The interjected supervisor only has power if you agree to its terms. By dismantling those internal reality constructs, you open the door to a completely different paradigm of existence right here in the present moment.
So bringing this all together for you listening, we've traced a really remarkable arc today. We started in the darkest corner of the mind, trapped in the fearful, isolated loops of a person carrying a stack of despair.
A heavy burden.
Very heavy.
Wow.
And we watched as a single question of cognitive diffusion basically shattered the illusion of the personal matrix, stripping away the artificial pressures of the clock and the micromanager.
Right.
And we emerged into the expansive, connected vision of the 5D frequency, anchored in grace, nature, and a soul tribe.
The big takeaway here is profound agency. I mean, the everyday pressures of the modern world are real, but your suffering over them is optional.
That's a great way to put it.
Stepping into this higher frequency doesn't require miraculous external changes. It requires an internal willingness to drop your pride, question your fear, and radically shift your perspective.
It's an invitation to stop asking, why is the world doing this to me? And start asking, who would I be without this fear?
Exactly.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, maybe slightly provocative thought to chew on.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Hear me out. The poem paints this really beautiful picture of leaving behind a messy world to find a new soul tribe and a beloved twin flame. And it's incredibly alluring.
It is.
But if everyone is solely focused on escaping their own reality constructs, if we are all just trying to shed our current environments because we feel alienated in them, are we actually building a new Earth together? Or are we just desperately searching for better co-stars to populate our own personal matrix?
That is a fascinating question.
Right, because remember that overwhelming, chaotic mess of a world we talked about at the very beginning. Maybe true spiritual mastery isn't about floating above the mess to find the perfectly peaceful tribe. Maybe it's about learning how to maintain your 5D frequency, perfectly in tune, right in the messy, complicated center of it all.